Hi, I'm Susan Hewlings, and I am Director of Scientific Affairs at Nutrasource Grass Associates.
And hi, my name is Doug Kalman, and I'm the Senior Vice President of Scientific and Regulatory Affairs at the Natural Products Association.
And Doug and I are here to talk today about, I think everybody knows that Doug and I have known each other longer than we're willing to admit, and we've worked together for many years. But in the last, I don't know, 5 years or so, Doug?
Yeah.
We've worked in a new space, which is e-gaming. And I think everybody, it's a big thing right now, and so we're here today to talk a little bit about e-gaming and the work we've done.
I think that esports and e-gaming, originally when it started, most people thought of it as something kids do and not much more. And it's evolved now to be a multi-billion-dollar industry for people, of course, that make the games. And now there's global competitive leagues. And believe it or not, there are collegiate, meaning university scholarships for esports. So it's become a big business where it's even now, recognized on the university level.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wanted to ask you, how would you define esports?
Esports. Oh, well, I think it's interesting because a lot of people think of just like kids sitting around playing video games, and I think it's certainly evolved. It's a really multiplayer, multi-skilled event that requires a lot of different cognitive skills to complete it, and it has become really a skill sport, I think, and a competitive event where money exchanges place.
The way I look at it is that e-gaming or esports is really the next evolution of what used to be just playing a board game, right? Because you could play some board games that are strategy, and you could play some board games that are nothing but rolling the literal dice. And the strategy ones evolved into the esports or e-games, whether it's Call of Duty, there's a strategy to those kind of games, Fortnite, even whether it's FIFA, soccer. So there's all of these things that then expanded, for esports to now become something that is more mainstream. So what do you think is required, for somebody that's an esport, quote unquote, athlete to actually play their game well or do well at it, besides knowing the game?
Yeah, and I think it brings up a lot of different skills, and especially I think the focus is, pardon the pun, but the focus is on the cognitive skills that are required. And I think that as the research has evolved in that area, it's become really surprising to a lot of people that it requires like memory, learning, attention. I mean, attention, like sometimes people are playing these things for like all their waking hours and then some. And so then it becomes an issue of sustained energy, sustained attention, recall, memory, did I say?
Are you not remembering if you said it?
Yeah, I know, yeah. All right, well, you got me, Doug. What else? What am I missing? Because it's a lot of skills. What else?
It is a lot of skills, and I think again, it is a lot of skills when you're playing, and most people don't think that those same skills actually translate to school, to the workforce, and to life. The skills that are mostly used in esports are the ability to multitask, the ability, reaction time, short-term memory, long-term memory, patterning. All things that we do subconsciously or unconsciously throughout our lives, but now it's more fixated. So from a nutritional standpoint or a training standpoint, can you train a person to stay more focused or stay focused longer? Can you help them so that they actually make less repeat errors? Because when you make less errors, you typically score higher, or you finish faster and you win, and there could be millions of dollars that are on the line. It's not just you versus your cousin playing football, Madden football or something.
Yeah.
So do you think that there is a connection with sports nutrition?
I think there is, and I think you just kind of almost said what it is. I think there's a lot of crossover with sports nutrition that have high cognitive, like sports that have high cognitive demand, and that I think that's where a lot of the interest has come from, and why this has taken off so much in our space. And we're looking at a lot of like e-game or gummy formulas and drinks and things like that, is because there is a lot of crossover. And it's an interesting way to study some of those skills that we mentioned, the cognitive skills, attention, memory, learning, and not just for the sports nutrition space, but we can also look at it in like cognitive health in general, right? Like when you say there's some crossover to some other spaces besides just sports nutrition?
Most definitely. I've been making an argument for years that esports has some similarities to sport nutrition, but within esports, what I would call cognitive nutrition can be expanded into other areas. So yes, if something enhances your ability to recall or for processing speed or to reduce errors, it should still have that same effect in the boardroom. So to me, like people that operate a high stress business in the business world, a lawyer, a doctor, anybody that has, you know, more than two things to do at the same time could probably benefit, you know, from the cognitive benefits. From a nutrition perspective, when we're thinking about sports nutrition, no, somebody doing e-gaming might not need to carbohydrate load like a marathon runner, but they still need adequate and right nutrition to maintain healthy blood sugars for extended periods of time. Because you could be gaming, it's usually not a half-hour event. It could be 4 hours, it could be 5 hours, and they're not necessarily taking breaks for Slurpees, you know? So that how you eat and understanding how to feed is very similar to a marathon runner, right? That might take 4 to 5 hours to run the 26.2 miles. They are getting some nutrition along the way. So some of those same rules I think apply.
Oh yeah, and I think it's like, it's the idea of being sports specific. I mean, you mentioned marathon runners, so like the nutrition, especially from a macronutrient perspective, that you might recommend to a marathoner is going to be different than maybe to one of the fighters that you work with, right?
Right.
Which then, of course, will be different to the e-gamers. But then there will also be some nuances and crossovers. And again, I think it comes down to like what I've always said is like sports nutrition really is about fine-tuning a good thing. If you don't have a good foundational diet, really the rest of the tweaking specific to your sport is sort of, you know, jumping ahead. So
Almost
there,
definitely.
you know, a good solid healthy diet to begin with is going to also benefit the e-gamer as well. So what do you think it is about e-gaming? Why is it so big? Why are we seeing it such the focus?
You know, it's kind of interesting. If you think about the last 2 or 3 years, people have been forced indoors because of the pandemic for the past 2-3 years. So with boredom or with trying to figure out other things to do in the house, there's definitely been an explosion of use of the internet for a variety of things. Think of how big Netflix has gotten globally, and e-games has been part of it. And because you could play e-games where you could be in your room in let's say Des Moines, Iowa, and somebody could be a partner of yours on a team event that's online in Guelph, Ontario, then you're able to still stay connected with people. So there's a socialization aspect to it also. I also think that due to you know, kids becoming the growth of social media and how younger population interacts on the phone much more like a computer than calling people has also enhanced the growth of esports because of the amount of apps that you can play on your phone and things along that. So I think there's been a convergence for the growth in that area.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to mention was, and I don't know if you've ever noticed, but for years, like the biggest products that were promoted within esports and e-gaming were generally just high sugar, high caffeine drinks. Do you think that there's any negative aspect or not from I'm not talking about a health perspective, but if you're a gamer and your precision and accuracy and reaction time all matter, is there a level of caffeine that might be actually counterproductive, and maybe the high sugar, high caffeine products were actually, while people think that you need more energy, you need more mental awareness, actually were causative of you not playing as well as you could have?
That's a really interesting point because I think that drives a lot of what you see in the space for the anti-jitters claim, right? A lot of people are wanting to make the claim of their product that it doesn't cause jitters, doesn't lead to jitters, and I think that's exactly why. And as we know, I mean, with caffeine, everybody reacts differently to caffeine. It's very individual as to your reaction to caffeine.
Right.
And while there are upper limits that are established, and you know, the research certainly looks at that, individual really kind of like dictates what the upper limit is. This can be different for very many different people. We've talked about that a lot in a lot of different spaces. And I also think with e-gaming, the thing that you brought up and touched upon and what you just said is that it's a place for a lot of different disciplines to study different things, right?
Yes.
So it's a place for let's say sociology. It's a place for human development. It's a place for psychology. And so, yes, we think of biology, biochemistry, physiology, and those types of things, and we look at nutrients. But I think it's also a multidisciplinary space to test. And you made me think of that when you said about people socializing, especially during the pandemic. It was a way for people, whether it's kids or whoever it is, to interact with people. And I also think it's an interesting sign of our times in that it brings people together globally. The world is a smaller place when you can play a game, like you said, in you're in Des Moines, Iowa, and maybe your partner's even, I don't know, in Japan or somewhere. And so it brings the world together in a place that we've never experienced before. And so it provides for interesting study from so many perspectives. And I think that's what attracts me to it, and why I wanted us to work on some of these studies. Is like, yes, we usually focus on the benefits, looking at cognitive function, etc., but it's just so much more beyond that and fascinating to me.
I do really strongly feel that in studies that we've been involved with and other studies that have looked at different aspects of cognitive function and brain health in an e-game or somebody playing extended games, is that I think globally we still need better understanding and explanation of what is it that we're finding. So when we find that by the flanker test or by this test that you have improved processing speed, or you have, you reduce errors, what does that mean in the real world? Like, how does that translate? Do I have to be playing a game to have reduced errors, or will I just make better decisions in my private life? So,
yeah, will I not send that text that I really shouldn't send at
right.
2 a.m.?
Does it give you the pause button, for your own life?
That's a really interesting thing. So it's like, I think that so much progress has been made so quickly, and I think that it's been beneficial, and especially looking at cognitive performance and cognitive function from different perspectives, meaning e-gaming stretches beyond, and we can look at it in aging, and we can look at it in work function, studying, performance, etc. But what do we need to do? And you bring up an interesting thing, and that is, I think that we need to define, put some research into definitions, defining exactly what is e-gaming and what is needed to be successful at e-gaming.
The attributes.
Yeah.
What are the attributes for a successful e-gamer?
And when we're measuring these things in e-gaming, what does it really mean beyond e-gaming?
Right.
And these are things I think that we can look at, and goals that for future direction in the space.
I'm excited for what the future brings, not only within esports nutrition or esports, but I think that we're going to be able to get a better understanding of, yes, this is only for it's being studied in the e-game or esports, but how, for other applications in our lives. One of the things, again, that crosses my mind is, if you think about brain health and longevity and cognition, a lot of neuroscientists have validated and developed things like Sudoku, right? Which is a wordplay game. I don't really know it, but I know my father does it, and people do it. But the whole point is that these are different types of problem-solving games that have been shown to help maintain cognition as we age. So the e-gamer might be your 25-year-old person, but perhaps if they stay active doing those kind of brain challenging events, it keeps their brain fresher, or like a muscle more flexed throughout their lifetime, so that they have, when they reach the 50s, 60s, 70s, they don't have the decline that's typically associated with aging.
Yeah, so also, so for the
benefit,
longest time, we talked about video games in the field of nutrition as being negative, right? Because it decreased physical activity, and it was said that
Right.
decreased physical activity contributed to the obesity epidemic. And maybe it's like, okay, well, now we need to realize this is part of our culture. So how can we use it to a benefit? And what are the benefits associated with it? And that, I think that is a good direction to think about. And how will it benefit people potentially who wouldn't normally be, quote, e-gamers? Can we use some of these skills and these training to help offset some of those cognitive losses that we experience as a natural part of aging. So I think there's just a lot of potential for this space, and that's really, I mean, I'm not an e-gamer. I didn't want us to start, and neither are you. This is not our thing. But we see the potential of it, and we see the crossover to other spaces, and I think for us that was like, because we talked about it when we first started working. We were like, we're like, what even is Fortnite? And we were like, let's go and find out what it is. But we were both excited about it because we realized that there could be potential crossover, and I think that's the biggest thing to say about this space as far as it being exciting, is it goes so far beyond a video game that.
Right. It's not just a high school kid that's playing a video game for 2 hours that you think is wasting their life in their bedroom. There's actually cognitive benefits. There are nutritional aspects to enhance those benefits that are not only translate to potential play, which can mean money and other things if you're competitive, but also, again, can translate to things like how you do in school, how you do in work, how you maintain your relationships with people. And nutrition plays a big role in that. And e-nutrition or esports nutrition is just an extension of what I would call performance nutrition.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I'm excited that we're involved in it, and I can't wait to see where it goes.
Thank you.